Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn with my co-host Nancy Hopkins. And Radio 5G is a joint project of Cosmic Reality Radio and the Sacred Academy of Global Evolution. And we are very pleased to have with us as our guest today Cyrus Parsa, who is the man behind the AI organization and the groundbreaking lawsuit in federal court naming the top big tech companies and a number of the associated political figures such as Barack Obama and Google and the Bidens and the Clintons sued in federal court for weaponized AI biotech transfer, specifically to China, which is endangering the lives not only of the Chinese as being used by the authoritarian government in China, but with implications for all of humanity. So, Cyrus, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me on your show, Nancy and Michael.
You're so welcome. So, we'd just like to get an update from you. I know from having talked to some activists that we're working with that the progress of the lawsuit at this juncture depends upon the defendants being served by U.S. Marshals. And as I think about, the implications of that and what it means to serve these particular individuals, that is no easy task. So would you like to just share with us, perhaps a little bit of background on how you came to begin this effort and how you see it going forward and what the funding needs are?
Well, I guess let me start from the beginning, since maybe your audience may not have had a chance to research and see how it got to this stage. And I can share that with you folks in this call. So I formed the AI organization in the year of 2018 after years of researching big tech and the political climate and the conflicts that we have with China, Iran, and around the world. And, all these divisions between Democrats and Republicans that have existed for so many years. And, of course, the political movements of socialism and communism destroyed so many countries. So after forming the AI organization, I officially researched over 1,000 artificial intelligence, biometric, robotics, cybernetics, bioengineering, and companies that are related to 5G. Because I saw huge threats coming to humanity, not just from censorship, but in numerous ways, not just the biodisease that I put in the books. So after researching these companies, initially I saw a huge threat that was a security risk to the White House, President Trump, and key figures around the world. That comes from poison delivery systems that could be put on micro drones. So the WIS Institute in Boston area, they work on robo-bees. Robo-bees are created for pollination, according to them. But the Chinese government, through its tech transfer and collaboration, students abroad, and so many things, they extracted know-how for these robo-bees. And I researched and I realized they want to use them for policing, they want to use them for espionage, and also for assassination to put poison delivery systems on them. And then the same thing they were doing with cyborg beetles. And this is connected to the 5G network. So I researched DARPA. DARPA is not DARPA. It's DARPA, which is another institute in that area in the East Coast. And they're putting machine packs on dragonflies. So Chinese stole this information. And I realized the White House was not prepared, neither was the Secret Service, for cybernetically enhanced items that could be used in multiple different ways, which I'm not going to disclose, then you can use your imagination in this one. So I discreetly reported to the Secret Service. I kept my mouth shut for 6 months. And I just wanted to make sure that they made some moves, and they did. And I gave about 41 companies intel to the former director of CIA cover-ups that was with 3 presidents. My final report in June, which included quantum, 5G, AI, and facial recognition, all kinds of biometrics. He just asked for biometrics. He wasn't expecting the whole gamut of things. I gave him 41 companies, paid me for one company, which was enough to pay maybe one staff would do a little bit of research. I did it because Trump was getting so much incoming, and they were so busy getting attacked with impeachments, and I realized the intelligence community was far behind in this AI things. I mean, far behind. But when I gave it to him, he was just mind blown, and I just gave him 10% of what I knew, and he was just mind blown. He gave it to the military. Then I waited and waited, and I published AI, Trump, China, and the weaponization of robotics with 5G. The subtitle was How China, Western AI, and Robotics Corporations Pose the Greatest Threat to People Through Biodigital Social Programming via the Human Biodigital Network, and Why the World's Citizens Need to Support the Trump Administration Against the Chinese Regime. Very complex subtitle. So I compressed maybe a 10,000-page report into about a 200-page book with a lot of pictures, coded language. I did not include any company names in here. I just said these are capabilities, included robotics, microdrones, so many different things. And things that are very, very advanced, not just for 5G, but in the future. So it's present, emerging, and future threats. And
Cyrus, can you tell people where they can get a copy of that book?
Yeah, so you can go to Amazon, but if you go to the AIorganization.com, you can download this book, but I embedded this in the second book. I embedded 95% of it. The 5% I didn't because it's really, really hard for people, their brains to accept some of the things I said in this first book. So I took it out. But 95% of it is in the second book, which is Artificial Intelligence, Danger to Humanity. And I'll explain this because there's a sequence. When I published this, immediately people who have been in the CIA, senior officials that know the Homeland Security people that I know, because I have a bachelor's in national security and master's in Homeland Security. And I went through a PhD program, and I didn't finish. And these people transmitted to the White House, and they got a confirmation that, it got received. Like 3 weeks later, President Trump is sitting with the Australian Prime Minister, and he states, oh, you do robotics, right? Yeah, China threatens the whole world. And that's my introduction for the book. It says China threatens all the world's citizens, and with bioengineering, cybernetics, 5G, quantum, all these kind of things, and really sophisticated things I put in there, which included the coronavirus. I called it an AI engineered biodisease that gets it replicates and mutates and increases in its effectiveness on human beings on the 5G network. I tried to warn the whole world. Immediately, Facebook banned its promotions. So the cover has a robot with a smartphone over his head, robots looking over a smart city. To its left or right, if you're looking at the book cover, it's got a horse with George Washington on it, but the head is not George Washington. I replaced it with President Trump. On the left side, it has Karl Marx with the little sickle on his forehead. And that explains that our tech companies are controlled by a coding which is communist, and which can actually easily take over the world compared to capitalist structure, which can be done in either way. So immediately I get attacked. And some people call me stupid. Oh, a lot of people call me stupid, actually. And really, really smart people like went inside and read the book, and there were CIA intel people, but they didn't get it 100%. And even the White House people, they didn't get it 100%. But they realized, whoa, yeah, China is doing things. I ended up at the presidential dinner giving it to a high-ranking general. He took some of it. He didn't believe in AI, but he started pirating some of the other stuff. I think, okay, well, I go to a news outlet, and this is a conservative news outlet, and they're really good people there. The two reporters say, "Oh, we don't do AIs, nothing," and they don't report me. Next thing I know, my team says they're plagiarizing and they're going events and they're saying AI, drones, 5G, quantum, robotics, Huawei, all the stuff I put in my book. So the people, either I'm getting laughed at, slandered, or the really smart people who understand some of it are stealing my stuff and plagiarizing. And I'm trying to warn all the world's citizens. And in here I put how all the big tech companies, including the media, can be sued for complicity on not only genocide in China, but the prevention of genocide to the human race, which I put in here in stages. It's going to happen to people, not just physical genocide, but cultural genocide and them losing their free will. So I think it was October, NTTV ran one of my articles, which was concluded that the people who died, the females that were in rivers, weren't suicides. They were actually rapes, and they used facial recognition in Hong Kong with AI in the apps to catch them. And right away, NTT ran it. 1 million people saw it within hours. It broke their records, Chinese outlet. 3 million came to my website and replicated it to 100 million people all over the Far East. And then I'm saying the Bloomberg lady, she shares it, and then 3 weeks later they ran an article, but they don't cite me. They say, oh yeah, they're using facial recognition. So I'm like, okay, so Bloomberg are cheating me. I'm like, fine. Just person follows me, right? So, and all the generals see me tweeting strategically to them, to all Fox News, Marie Baltimore, which she likes my book, and all the other people. They're behind the network. They're changing their actual sales technique, putting AI, drones, quantum, but they're not running me. And if you look at the introduction, it's pretty vast if you look on Amazon. So I don't know what to do. Think tanks are taking my stuff and they're starting researching, and I'm working 18 hours a day with my team. Some of them get scared because they know what I'm trying to do. So I run Artificial Intelligence Danger to Humanity, which embedded this book, expanded on it, and I include 50 of my companies in there, how they interconnect Chinese companies and Western companies, how they endanger every human being on the planet. And I expounded on how the people can be sued and the media can be taken down, everyone else can be taken out, and how there's so many people that are involved with organ trafficking, and then what 5G is going to do to people and 6G and so on, how it's going to replicate and all these kind of things. And Amazon's, I'm sorry, I don't want to use this term, but they use a look and feature, and everyone gets half the intel because a quarter of a book is available, and they corrupted the file months previous to that. I forgot to tell you folks, Twitter stopped the promotion of this book the first day. Why? Well, let's just say we don't know. As soon as I removed the subtitle where it says the world needs to support the Trump administration against Chinese regime, they immediately approved my promotion for the book. So a lot of people start following me, but then it was too much for them, and they unfollowed. Conservatives, all kind of different things. Everyone's watching, and they're just extracting information and making content. I'm trying to warn the world, and people are just making content of me, and and changing the words around. So I muscle through, and I have my connections, and they get this third book, Artificial Intelligence to Humanity. They get it to the not only the White House, but high government officials in many places. I even had one of my articles warning Taiwan, and it went to the president. So long story short, I don't know what to do. I know the virus is going to hit any time. I know we have I found coding that showed extinction for the human race in stages. And I'm trying to warn people, but people at the highest level, they don't understand this. They just have contracts that were put in by the Bidens and Obama from years. So I run the lawsuit on December the 16th, which did not disclose the John Doe's 1 through 29, which included Obama and a bunch of other people. And, it's not just the left. I'm sorry. A lot of conservatives are guilty of certain things as well. But unfortunately, the biggest damage that was done was by the approval of the naivety of allowing China to steal so many of our technology that can be used for nefarious things that endangers everybody on the BRI, which is the One Belt, One Road. So I came up with a conclusion in the first book in August that China with big tech can dominate, enslave, or control and threatens all the world's citizens on a quantum AI digital brain that connects with an artificial superintelligence or AGI and mobilizes machines, drones, robotics, and microbots that can enslave the human race through biodigital social programming. And I can explain that with a question. I'm summarizing here, right? So the lawsuit becomes viral on Twitter. It reaches every city in every nation. Not one media picks it up. They're not watching me, right? I have Wall Street journalists following me, but they're not running it. We have people dispatching to the New York Times. They don't run it. I'm saying, hey, you guys can be liable if you don't run it. You're against city, national, international laws. So when I do that, a lot of people on the surface that work with me, not the intel groups behind me, they immediately disappeared because they're thinking you're shot or whatever, but they don't understand there's intel people around me that are watching. So I'm by myself. I run out of money, and next thing I know, I'm going to have to sell my Renaissance paintings just to keep it going. Waiting. No lawyer will take it. A couple want to take it, but they want to make money off it. I don't want to make money off it. So I disclose I make a bunch of articles about how people were programmed to attack Trump with a video and an article I embedded in there, which included AI, smartphones, social media, and Google, and I explained it, how it actually works. And I was on InfoWars with Owen Schwartz, and then I was on with a bunch of other alternative places that took me up. So Red Pill 78, quite frankly, True Reporting, and of course John B. Wells. So I run the John Does, which you have like 14 days to serve, and I asked, okay, please donate. We want to serve everyone we want to serve everybody with U.S. Marshals. It's not just a simple task. It's 40 companies and people, which includes not just, the negligence of Obama and the complicity of Obama and Pelosi and Clinton and Biden's. And Biden is taking $1.5 billion from China while Obama knew there were slave camps in China, while there were reports to him telling him that they're organ harvesting people, and then he's allowing Biden to take $1.5 billion. That's crimes against humanity, right? So, but it's not just the liberals. A lot of conservatives went to China. They got organs. And, I housed David Kilgore and David Mattis for their lectures, and they concluded in 2006, 41,000 transplants were accounted for. 2016, they concluded that 60 to 100,000 transplants per year, every year for 18 years were accounted for in China. It's a lot of people, or transplants. So the whole world was flying into China. They had marketing. Bring in 100 grand, 200 grand cash, you get an organ within 48 hours, heart, liver, kidney, whatever it may be. So think about how many people have gone to China. How many of our business people did business with China? They have a knowing side. They knew, China's a nefarious country. They did business, right? So I don't want to be mean to the left because they're victims as much as the conservatives are. So I run this lawsuit. It's the biggest thing in human history. And you see the QAnon people. Oh, let's get these people. They look at my lawsuit. One of them kind of likes it, but they don't retweet it. So I'm like, okay, these guys are talking about all these deep state people, but they don't retweet it. Even the conservative networks that were saying, oh, none of them run it. So, and I talked to somebody really, really high level, and they're like, we don't want to condemn these people because it's not just the Obama administration's fault. It's multifaceted. It goes back decades. And we don't want to create a civil war, and I don't either. My intention is really to get this fighting to stop between the left and the right. It's unbelievably crazy, but also to break up these tech companies because they're endangering not just you and your families and everyone else, they're endangering yourselves. And it's very sophisticated. So nobody donated, or maybe 20 people donated. So
well, let me ask you,
yeah.
excuse me for interrupting
Go ahead.
here, Cyrus, but so from the summary you're sharing with us, what it seems like the challenge that you're confronting right now is that in order to move forward with the lawsuit, you need to have the U.S. Marshals serve all of these very high-profile people, which is no easy task, and that because all of the information that you have researched and brought forward in the lawsuit has been shared across a very wide spectrum of media, both traditional and alternative, that because your content is not being cited and credited to you, because no media is following up on the story, you are in a funding quandary in terms of being able to move forward, because even though millions of people now know about the lawsuit, there is no direct translation of that awareness into the financial support needed to move forward with the lawsuit. Is that a good summary?
That is a good summary, but there is another summary as well. Nobody wants to move on this. And the intel groups, I did this for multiple reasons. It's not to get these guys. I don't want to hurt these guys, okay? A lot of people want blood. They want to get these guys. I don't want to hurt any of these people on the list, including the big tech companies. What I want to do is bring awareness and expose the dangers and how that everybody's a victim, not just the conservatives, but also
right. Right. So let me ask you, when I'm looking at the list of defendants here, and just for our, we'll have the link to the AIorganization.com up on the YouTube and in the live chat. This is being pre-recorded. But I'm just going to read a list of some of the defendants so that our listeners get an idea of the scope of the lawsuit. And let me just read the case summary facts, if I may, from your website here, Cyrus. Case summary facts, and again, this is a lawsuit in federal court. And the summary facts are threatening and endangering the lives of all the world's people with the misuse of artificial intelligence, biotechnology, negligent bioweapon tech transfer, negligent failure to stop Chinese intellectual property and sensitive AI biotechnology theft, complicity to genocide, and aiding in physical genocide within the slave camps inside of China by transferring AI, quantum biotechnology, financial investments, trade, surveillance systems, facial recognition, and engaging in cultural genocide of humanity via cybernetics, bioengineering, transhumanism, by controlling and reprogramming the human races and the upcoming new generation of people's thoughts, emotions, and brain chemistry, etc. And the defendants listed here start with Google, LLC, Barack Hussein Obama, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, Eric Schmidt, John O'Brien, Warren Buffett, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, James Clapper, Facebook Incorporated, DeepMind Incorporated, Alphabet Incorporated, the World Bank, Neuralink Incorporated, Tesla Incorporated, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Sundar Pichai, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Microsoft, Bill Gates, etc. It goes on. George Soros, Rockefeller Foundation, Chinese Communist Party. When you were sharing with us, Cyrus, that this is primarily an awareness raising effort on your part, you do not realistically expect to bring this long list of extremely high profile, the most high profile people in the world and high profile companies in the world to actually, bring them to court. I mean, just the massive challenge of serving these people, like getting U.S. Marshals on board to serve Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Warren Buffett. I mean, good luck finding these people. I don't know the exact mechanics of serving papers, but usually you got to find somebody and physically hand them to them. The U.S. Marshal has to physically hand them. Pass this along to Mr. Obama, would you please? So obviously that's a huge logistical challenge if you're talking about Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Barack Obama, George Soros, for crying out loud. These are not people who are easily served. It would be actually a multi-million-dollar high security company, a elite security company would have to be hired to brainstorm how to corner all these people. So I guess my question to you is, given the awareness raising mission here, what, in order to keep the lawsuit moving forward such that it is a reality that people can continue to report on, that can raise people's hopes that these crimes might actually be brought to justice. I mean, are you receiving advice that you should narrow the list of defendants to, some with whom the case is clearer and who can be more easily served? I'm just wondering, if you could share with us your thoughts on this in terms of whether the ultimate awareness-raising purpose is well served by having, this list of 40 high-profile individuals and companies. If you could unmute there, Cyrus, we're not hearing you. Is this how? Okay, there we go.
Okay, let me just give a correction on that. I was going to have these guys hunted down. Don't get me wrong. I came to the point I was disgusted by the editors and the publishers and the media houses. And then I was disgusted with so many people that you see that are showing themselves to be good, but you go to them and all they do is actually take your stuff and they make their own tweet to just grow their own platform. Everywhere people are doing, not just the liberals, but also conservatives. I'm like, wow, am I just doing something that's so huge that it's so difficult for people to energetically, morally, ethically try to accept and try to support me? So difficult. And I didn't even want to get to this point. I didn't want to sue these guys. I just wanted a platform so I can bring awareness and education in time because things are forming. And I was hoping, President Trump would say something about it the first time. And, he knew about it and they made some moves and some things was taken care of. But the second time, we're releasing Obama, this should be like in every media house and everywhere in the world. So you're telling me that everyone is conspiring not to report on this? No, I think it's just a matter of shock. And some of it is just so sophisticated for people in our medias that it's just way beyond their pay grade.
Well, excuse me, I can agree with that. I just, we know about the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance that, as you say, there are a lot of people who simply can't even integrate the information that the evil is that systemic, runs that deep. But for a lot of these folks, and if you're talking about the Washington Post, New York Times, Time Magazine, who are listed as defendants, those are not, shall we say, neutral, disinterested public servants, in terms of intelligence community control, corporate media control of, how over the last several decades, media in the United States has gradually been completely co-opted by a very small number of mega corporations. I think does it feel sometimes just sort of unrealistic to expect that something as, earth-shaking as what you're bringing forward, that is a direct threat to the establishment, to the hidden hand of these puppeteers, if we're talking Google and Facebook and Microsoft and their ties to the intelligence community. I don't know, it just strikes me as perhaps a little unrealistic to be suing the Washington Post and the New York Times because they're not covering a story which directly exposes the people who control the Washington Post and the New York Times. You're getting Is this making sense?
Yes, but they didn't have to get to that point. They could just report it on the dangers of AI and 5G that I posed in the articles and the books and interviews. That I wasn't trying to point out any company. I was just trying to say the idea of things and how people can just kind of step back a bit. And they wouldn't do that. So, but here's the thing. By doing this, we could take down the entire media. You just need a bunch of other people to follow suit, and then, hey, let's just sue this reporter. She didn't report. Let's sue our editor, the producer. There's 300 million people in the U.S. And here's what you can sue them for. If you look at what I put in there, Article 3 complicity clause, that applies to every human being on the planet, not just an international genocide convention, but it applies at a national level. And there are all other laws to interconnect with it. If you look at the lawsuit, it's an 81-page lawsuit I put there that I updated. There's so many penal codes that it deals with Nuremberg and biometrics and so many that interconnect. And again, I never want to hurt these CEOs or these big tech tycoons or the tech companies. Well, I'm not against our intelligence. I'm trying to share that everyone's being endangered by this whole matrix because I was able to research 1,000 companies. So again, it got to a point that, yes, I was about to hunt these guys down, but I realized even the guys who are the most gung-ho about hunting all these deep state, what they call the word deep state, they're not on board with. I don't even see this on the website. So Alex Jones had me on last night, but I don't see the lawsuit on the website. Maybe I should look deeper.
Well, just if you forgive me, Cyrus, just simply because, like you, we have to watch the watchers in terms of who's listening to the broadcast or what kind of robotic reading of our languaging.
Yes.
Of course, and I know that when you were referencing hunting these people down, that is simply a reference to the process of having them served papers by U.S. Marshals.
Yes.
As absurd as it sounds, people do get their channels taken down for language that sounds, like it's militant.
It's
absurd. I know. We'll use a different phrase.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't mean it that way at all.
Yeah.
I'm just... and the other thing about it is, I mean, but if I could just to continue along this line for a second, when you're talking about suing media figures, I did a fair amount of work with a movement to establish an enforceable new international court of human rights, and looking at, for example, you're talking about the Nuremberg laws and complicity, etc. Now, the challenge of enforcing international human rights law, particularly with the precedents, in the war crimes trials in Nuremberg and Tokyo and elsewhere, and what has been codified into United Nations conventions and agreements and various treaties over the years, just in trying to enforce that in the face of just the trampling of national sovereignty by the United States, by NATO, that it's a massive challenge. When you try to say, okay, we're going to sue Rachel Maddow because she's complicit in genocide because a story based on facts was brought to her attention, and she and her editorial board at MSNBC chose not to cover that story. Well, that's about as difficult and far-fetched a case to prosecute as I can imagine. It's like, hey, we're a corporation. We're, running a news operation here. There's lots of other stories. We just happen to decide that, the virus in China was a more important story that week. And we question the credibility of his sources, blah, 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 and off you go. And it just seems, I appreciate there is real moral complicity. These people don't really have a leg to stand on in terms of, burying their heads in the sand on what is happening in the world. The New York Times, the board of directors of the New York Times is made up primarily of former big telecom executives. It is not realistic to expect 5G and the lethality of it to be covered. It's not. I mean, you look, the New York Times might as well be an advertisement from Verizon when it comes to their coverage of 5G. So, I really do applaud the bravery of what you're doing. I just think it's kind of a hard sell to say, hey, we need to sue these people because they didn't pick up my story. That, I don't know, is there a more effective way to as you say, if it's about overturning, the major media distortion and falsehoods. I don't know, but this just seems like I'm a quick side guy myself. Jump in, Nancy.
Let me jump in here because first off, the President of the United States has sued for libel the New York Times. Another congressman is just sued for libel against the Washington Post. And when he was discussing this, he said, because the question was sort of presented the way that you presented, isn't this a wild goose chase, And he said, look, if we don't start standing up and using the law the way it was intended and to force them to pay attention, then everything is lost. So I applaud you for taking this particular avenue to try to do it the right way. What you're confronting, of course, is that the right way is full of obstacles. But I really think it's important that you get your main message out on this show. And that main message is to try to explain to people what we are actually talking about. Because it's sci-fi on steroids. Because they have been, when I was in the intelligence community, we knew that everything that was out in the public was 50 years older than what we were working with. And it's probably even more so now. So when you talk about, robotic insects that can deliver poison, let's just stop and talk about it a little bit so that it's not so outlandish to people. Can we do that? Would that work for you?
Oh, yeah, sure. I just want to address Michael's complicity concern. Would that be all right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
I agree with both of you. So I think if your audience and everyone can think of the whole picture that I brought together, so I put 31 clauses in here, right? It's not just the complicity, it's the interconnection of all these laws coming together as an individual or an entity. Because what I did in this lawsuit is connect these companies at the city level, at the state level, national level, and the international level, because these are corporations that connect the whole world, and this way they can be taken down. And people think laws are cases are won just because you're writing the law. No, the momentum behind people coming together and it getting into the media and their consciousness affects things. So my attempt with this lawsuit was threefold. One was to bring awareness. The second was exposing. And then the third one was to actually, if they're not going to change, then they'll be served, and then these monies they'll be given to the people who have suffered, including the American people. And that's a lot of money I put in there. So I don't want to bankrupt these companies, but if you have, let's say, not just me, but let's say one day 500 Americans go sue the New York Times, then it becomes 1,000. Then when their lawyers respond with a demur, their lawyers get sued because what they're doing is obstructing justice that deals with genocide conventions. There's no fighting. So if you remember what the Nazis did to the Jewish people, who's going to stand up and fight for somebody who's gassed a bunch of Jewish people? Or let's say what the Russians did to the Christians. The communist regime did to the Christians. There's no fighting. There's no defending war crimes or human rights violations at that scale. So And that's what it entails. When you have lawyers fighting on behalf of these companies to demur, to hide, to deflect, then you sue them. So then it snowballs into a bunch of people, let's say in the hundreds of thousands, and then it gets in people's consciousness, then the whole thing falls. That was my hope. But people are just so scared, or maybe they don't see the whole picture, and there's so many factions. I mean, within the conservative networks, there's so many factions. Within the liberal networks, there's so many factions. So to conclude with this lawsuit, I want to potentially, at this point, since I see nobody really supporting it, and I'm out of money. You know how much money it was put into research all these companies, how much effort. Now I don't have that much money. We just have maybe $4,000 in donations with this, and you have people donating for cat stuff. Oh, my cat fell down, and you get $100,000 or something like that. So I was hoping a couple of billionaires or even millionaires or maybe thousands of people would donate $10 a piece, and then we would go serve everybody. But then there's more scale. So at this point, I want to change this to a mediation and sit down with these people and get a lot of exposure. So what I really need would be a more like people like you to are really smart and wise and have networks to have me get on shows and speak, for people to actually read the book. Maybe I'll actually release the intel report I gave the former CIA cover-ups director, which is not like I put in the books. It's actually an intel report. It has data on what companies, how much they're making, and it's different. It was written differently. So that's my answer for that. But yes, if we can talk about usually what comes out from what I take, it's about 10 years ahead, and in some cases 50 years ahead what the military have, because DARPA released the internet, and they did it when they thought it's safe. And then these smartphones, as I put in the book, these are military devices. They're meant to dispatch messages and even drones and machineries. But what I discovered that they have proximity sensors inside them, beyond like checking your heartbeat, beyond checking your menstrual cycle. What it's doing is connecting to people's nervous system. And when it does that, it actually affects your neural network. So if you're viewing something on this cell phone and all this bias that came from the media against Trump, people were being programmed to hate Trump beyond the norm. So if you didn't like him, then you would just hate him. If you're neutral, then you wouldn't like him, or you could just hate him. So if you look at one of my articles, people program to attack Trump with AI, smartphones, social media, and Google. And that's really complex. But I want to get back to what you said, the drones. Yes, they've been around, and the guy who made
let's just stop here for a second, because this is so fascinating to me. I have people around me, we call it the Trump derangement syndrome, because something triggers them. And my best friend, I've known her for 20-some years, she would get these, I got limited on what I could say because certain words would trigger her. And she would go into an uncontrollable state of absolute hate for Mr. Trump. And I mean, we almost broke off being friends because she was so, she thought that there was something deranged about me because I supported him, and what you're saying to me, if I'm understanding you, is that, and I've known this, I was an electronic warfare officer back in the 70s. I've been on this trip for, 45 years. What you're saying to me, and confirming what I have said actually, is that this telecommunications system can actually give you a frequency that will set off essentially a pre-programmed reaction. Is that correct?
A lot more of that's a lot more sophisticated than actually that. I discovered things the military didn't know themselves, and the CIA didn't know itself. So they want to do operations to program people, right, to shift society against communism or whatever. But these smartphones have been developed to a certain way now, with the interconnection between the ecosystem of Google and social media and other things I discovered that even I believe the Pentagon doesn't even know about. And it's in the books that this interconnection actually is programming people at the cellular level, and even their nervous system and their brain chemistry is completely being altered. So if you look at the article, I wrote that in a simple way, and it was really hard for people to accept. I only got 500 retweets on Twitter. And basically, I put 3 stages on part 1. The first stage is, of course, normal bias that exists within the ecosystem of social media, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and that shifted people's not only votes, but shifted the perception of President Trump. The second level I put was engineered bias, with AI coding and AI algorithms that connected with bias from Chinese intel groups, from George Soros-funded foundations, and multiple other places against the Trump administration, against this country, against the Constitution, in fact. The third level I put was a little more complex, hard for people to understand, but I put that these smartphones connect with your nervous system, and when they do that, the AI app actually it has a mechanism inside. People can't see it, but it has a software. That software connects with your nervous system and your neural networks. So whatever you're reading or watching, that replicates inside the person's brain on the 4G network. And when it goes...
Well, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
So if you read the book Artificial Intelligence, Danger to Humanity, I talk about a replicating software with the interconnection of the AI apps and the AI system and the algorithms and the coding, and of course the machinery involved, which is your smartphones. This is very complex for people to maybe grasp, but I'm trying to go in steps to explain it with videos and also because this involves science of the human body. So I coined a term called biodigital social programming. Bio stands for your biology. Digital stands for your digital network. So if you're an atheist and you just believe in science, you can say, I believe in a digital self. If you don't believe in that and you believe in a consciousness, and you say, okay, digital stands for your consciousness. If you have a faith, or if you're agnostic and you're open to it, you can say, okay, it stands for my spirit or my soul. The next component, and also it covers your neural networks, your nervous system. The next component would be social. So biodigital social. Social covers your emotions. It also covers your social media and your social network. At the moment, we have a social network between me, Michael, and Nancy. And you have a normal social network that you deal with on a constant basis. The last word is programming. So I term biodigital social programming. So if you look at the first book, at the end, it says, the subtitle is, How China Western AI and Robotics Corporation pose the greatest threat to people through biodigital social programming via the Human Biodigital Network. Now, the Human Biodigital Network is very complex, and it includes so many different things. And it's in the book, but I summed it up. This is also included in the third book, and it's more complex. If you look at my Twitter account, it says, I do AI, robotics, 5G, quantum, Iran, China, biodigital social programming. This biodigital social programming covers everything that can happen to a human being as it interlaces with machines, robotics, and AI in the ecosystem. I put out a video called, Is 5G for Machines, AI, or Humans? And the conclusion was, it's not for humans, not built for human beings, not healthy for you. It's built for machines and also AI. But the frequencies are meant for machines, to mobilize machines and take you to and then later for 6G and so on, for you to be bioengineered and cybernetically, as they call it, enhanced, but changed. So what the smartphone does, the Trump deranged syndrome does this. The person that I know, that is my friend for 30 years, he stopped being my friend. And that was after I wrote the first book. And he hates Trump. At first, he liked him because he was liberal. And Trump had casinos and so on and loved women, right? As soon as he kind of alters himself and he's defending the country, now he hates them. I noticed so the conservatives hated him before, and now he's saving the country, and they love him. Liberals loved him before, now they hate him. So Trump deranged syndrome, if you look at people who have weak nervous systems, weak psychological states, when they interact with these smartphones, it increases their hate and their emotional reactions exponentially, not just because at the moment they're taking in their information. When they go to bed, this cell phone, because it replicated in their brain, it actually is replicating and brainwashing and altering their brain chemistry in their sleep state. Not only that, because it's always connecting with you, it's connecting with your nervous system. Throughout the day, it's programming you at a subliminal level, and people, you have to be so sensitive to reach it. Now, some people are very sensitive. Like me, I'm extremely sensitive. So some people will sit next to a cell phone and they'll check, okay, I think I got a tweet, because it's just on silence. And they'll look over there and it's flashing. So, but they haven't looked at the phone. But then right away they knew they got a text or a tweet, and the sensor is telling them. It's because that sensor is actually connected with their neural networks and the nervous system. And somehow that person's consciousness is connected to their brain and telling them, hey, you got a message, and they look over. Some other people look over and they realize it's a phantom. So it's because this phone is creating a symbiotic relationship with them. What I call the parasitical relationship, actually. It's a parasitical relationship. Elon Musk said, you are already a cyborg and you don't know it. You're a 2-digit cyborg. And now all we have to do is put these machines in your head with Neuralink. And what this does is finish off humanity, because people think they have their free will to begin with. For the most part, they don't. They're walking programs of what they've seen in their lives and what their organs and their emotions feed their brain. And it's just out of emotion. But what happens is when the 5G system comes in, they become completely programmed. They lose all free will, because the free will goes back and forth. The person's consciousness is not stable, especially people who are emotional. But with the 5G system, it finishes off humanity at a free will state, at a biodigital state, as I call it. But not only that, it finishes off humanity in stages, in cultural ways. So if you look at it, people's hormones are being affected. Why is it that there's so many men who think they're women now? And why is it society is accepting a grown man to show his genitalia and dance like a stripper in front of a boy or a girl who's 5 years old and they're clapping? It's because society is biodigitally social programmed the past 10 years with these smartphones, previous to that with the TV in Hollywood, to completely, it replicates in their brain, and it completely changes human culture, human morality and ethics, and any kind of logic, to the point in the future a human being can be said, okay, it's kind of cool to eat people. And you have some crazy professors that made that concept out in Sweden. To save the world, we should eat people. I don't know if you remember this, but this smartphone can program people with the ecosystem to completely alter everything. Now, people who have faith, for the most part, and strong people have faith, it's harder for them to be programmed. People who don't have faith but are maybe have strong neural networks and are very strong people, it's hard for these people to be programmed. They're a little older. It affects a new generation a lot easier. It also affects liberal-minded people easier as well, because they're more open to anything. Because generally they try to be more kind, but they're naive. And look at the transfer. So why did I sue all these companies? Because they were naive. And they transfer all these tech to China. In my book, in both books, I put the world is in danger, but also I put in there that there is an AI engineered biodisease coming from China. And it's also interconnected with animals and chimeras and mixing human-animal hybrids, which they're doing in China with stem cell research. So how did I know the coronavirus was coming 6 months ahead? I didn't call it corona. I just called it AI engineered disease. So I ran multiple algorithms, simulations, because I investigated 1,000 companies. I didn't go read any other stuff. I haven't actually read any books in 20 years. I read maybe 2 books or 1 book. And one of them gave me a lot of knowledge, actually, a lot of knowledge. This knowledge that came to me was from investigating these companies and using certain biometric tools that are not available. I also discovered an AI global biodigital network, which is different from the internet, and it's different from President's JWICs and the NIPRNets, which is for the intel community. There's another network that doesn't belong to the Pentagon, the CIA, and it exists there. And I call that the AI Global Biodigital Network. That's really deep to go into.
Okay. Cyrus, let me just check in with you on a couple of things you've been sharing, which I'd like to focus on a little more clearly. When you're talking about your awareness in advance of a bioengineered virus coming out of China, that the relationship of COVID-19, as it's now officially called, to 5G is a crucial element right now, because this interview, this radio show right now, obviously we're only being listened to by a handful of folks, a few hundred, whatever it is, live, a few thousand on our YouTube channel. It's a very select group. We are grateful to have an audience that is very well educated, a lot of activists, a lot of geopolitically aware people. And when we look at the massive fear campaign, and whether you call it, it goes back and forth. You have some people poo-pooing the virus and making light of it. You have some, lots of people exaggerating it. And then there's, of course, disinformation is always in play as well from various factions. But the bottom line is that there is, of course, massive attention, global attention, focused on the virus, the risks of it, the possibility of a pandemic, of millions of people dying. The recent very conservative estimate from a 15-year CDC veteran epidemiologist saying that, okay, best case scenario, this might just end up being like a really bad flu season. But from everything she has seen, her name is Juliana Grant, a CDC veteran. From all the information she has seen, she thinks it most likely that COVID-19 will play out like the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, which killed, 50 million people? And that we can't really stop it from being a pandemic at this point. It will not be the end of the world, but, millions of people will die. People, expect people to die. But, hey, you can minimize your risk by drinking lots of water, washing your hands a lot, not going into public places, and just hunkering down, not to worry. Major infrastructure will remain intact. Government, internet, major delivery won't go away, but there'll probably be a global recession. This is sort of her thumbnail, right? So there's this huge awareness. Try to get awareness on the risks of 5G, the dangers of 5G, for people who look at CNN, New York Times, and Washington Post, all of which are run by the people who are rolling 5G out. It's, to call it an uphill battle is a huge understatement. But if we can credibly link, and it gets even just out into the alternative journalism, field and world, and the growing movement to stop 5G is already, Switzerland, for crying out loud, Switzerland, a major, financial center, European, obviously a major sophisticated first world nation state, has put a moratorium on 5G. But if we can link 5G credibly and in solid science to increased vulnerability to COVID-19, and also bring along with that story what you're sharing, Cyrus, about the biotech weapon. I forget exactly the phrase you used to describe it. To me, this is a potential turning point because it's just flat out proven that 5G weakens human immunity, even without, the additional information we're getting about it actually triggering the virus, possibly triggering other links if it's a bioweapon, other encoding in the structure of the virus that makes it more lethal, that supposedly there's HIV markers included in it. Again, I say supposedly, but if we can link these two, it is game over for 5G because they have mounted this massive fear campaign. And if we can link it, even if it only gets out to 15, 20%, that takes 5G down globally. We already have this growing movement. And so for the benefit of our audience and for us as 5G awakeners, that's what this radio program is about. If you could share more with us, in particular, about the links between 5G and the virus, I think that would be really helpful.
Yes, let me give you an example with just 4G. So these smartphones, when you put them against your head, I've done biometric tests. It actually disrupts the flow of your neural networks. That's why you have some people that get brain tumors and headaches after they have a prolonged use of these smartphones. And if you notice, these smartphones, there's patents involved with the proximity sensors, there are patents involved with the electrical fields that they emit that connect with the human electrical field. So that's just 4G. And if you remember, I mentioned that the 5G is not built for humans. It's built for machines to mobilize robots, robotics, and drones, which Amazon would have flying drones, and Boston Dynamics would have these, dog robots and humanoid robots running everywhere, and people will have them as in their houses. This is what it's built for. They want to get to flying cars and all these kind of things, but you don't need this stuff next to your home. So these frequencies that are emitting on the 5G network, they will increase the damage to your health. They will break down your nervous system, not only culturally and biovisual social programming and alter your brain chemistry, but they will activate certain things in your body. So most people, when they get a virus, it's always in them. This is something maybe hard for someone to believe, but if you get some kind of flu, it's always dormant inside of you. That's why when people get older and their immune system gets weaker, they get sick again and they die because that virus was always inside them. So I put out an article on February 7th. I said COVID-19, whatever you call it, it's been here since the end of December. And people have had it in America, but it's been here in a mutated form that replicates in the human body. Wuhan, they had 5G. So with the 5G system, it was emitting and breaking down people's immune system. And what it does is if you have a virus inside of you, once these frequencies are hitting your neural networks and your nervous system, and what I call the human biodigital network, which is very advanced, it would take me hours to explain this. When it hits this, it breaks those channels down. It breaks your neural networks down. The virus is inside you. That's not made for human beings. It's not good for you. It's meant to replicate and kill you. That actually grows, and the 5G frequencies allows that to grow and replicate inside of you, break down your organs, and finish you off. Because what this smartphone is actually doing, if people can sense it, when you're touching it, right away it's affecting your neural network. So the Chinese have a philosophy going back, they have charts 2,500 years. They call these meridian channels or qi. The Indians call it prana or energy. The Persians, before the Muslims invaded them, they had the same concept. They believe that your emotions have an effect on different organs. They also believe that before you get sick, your energy channels break down. Then your blood becomes stagnant. then your immune system goes down or you have that organ failure. So people who have done maybe years of certain disciplines can maybe hone in and be able to sense these energy channels. So that's why there's acupuncture and these kind of things, but it's not advanced that they used to be, maybe 2,000 years ago. What I'm trying to do is mix today's science with ancient principles, and people call them dumb, but they had some wisdom. So getting back to this replication, because it's made for machines, not humans, the frequency is beyond what the human body can take in a prolonged dose, especially these little towers. They want to have so many of them because they're in short spurts. They're not from distances, right? So you have to have so many of them. What we'll do is completely increase any replicating virus you have inside of you. Through the long term, it'll actually hurt people's health. It'll culturally destroy people, and it will completely contribute to big tech companies programming people with their bias or their information on their ecosystem. It's multifaceted, not just your health. But yes, if you have a virus and you're using this technology, and including your IoT devices, these frequencies are automatically breaking down your nervous system. Why are there so many sicknesses the past 10 years? It's like doubled in every way, shape, or form. MS has increased so much. Why? Because of this technology. We don't need all these frequencies next to us. You want to go to bed, don't have a smartphone next to you.
Let me just jump in here to give an example of this. That shingles, okay. I got it, and so did a whole bunch of friends of mine that were not connected except for through the internet. And of course, I think it's a virus that was the smallpox, that we actually have been carrying it in our bodies, and then something sets it off. And when it happened, and it happened to so many people, I said, they're testing something. All of a sudden, we've all got shingles. I said, I'm telling you, this thing is some kind of an energy field that I'm feeling that set this sucker off. So,
yes, I called that in my book, Artificial Intelligence and Humanity. I called it a biodigital field. So I coined a bunch of terms within the organization, the books I wrote. One of them was called biodigital social programming, which I explained. The other one was the human biodigital network. And the other one was biodigital field and biofields. I also talked about rape mind, which is maybe another segment that's very deep, but it has to do with digital layers in the brain. So if you look at Elon Musk, he's very smart. He's one of the smartest, not wise, okay? He's not wise, but he's the most clever and smart tech guy, one of the most out there. And he knows the human body has inputs and outputs. He just doesn't know how to explain it himself because he's just using tools and putting things together. He doesn't have, let's say, what I have. I don't have what he has. We have different things. But he knows that by putting these implants to monkeys, the monkey was able to control the internet. Okay, that's proof for you that these frequencies are interacting with your body. Ha! And then I discovered that you don't actually even need this digital layer inside your brain. You don't need this implant. You can actually connect with the 5G or 4G or internet if you're able to open that area in your brain. And what Elon said was similar. He said that he discovered that the digital layer already exists there, but he needs to put a machine there in order for it to work. It's because the brain is untapped. I discovered another layer next to it, and that layer in human translation codes to it's blocked. So if you unlock that layer next to the other layer, you can tap into other areas in your brain and you can connect to the internet without needing any machines or any implants. But it's completely locked up. And I discovered there's a coding behind, and the coding translates into things that destroy humanity, like selfishness, greed, anger, emotion, jealousy, overly being lustful, doing all the vices that have started wars and divorces and all these things that are innate in human nature. That is locked up. So what these tech companies want to do, and I don't think they understand it fully themselves, but They want to unlock certain parts of the brain by putting machines in there. And when that happens, they want to create artificial general superintelligence. And I put in there that what we'll do is actually replace Elon. If you recall in the earlier segment of our interview, I talked about how it replicates, and they have an end goal. They want to live forever, not just Elon, Bezos, and all these people. They believe that if they merge with machines and AI, and what did he say? What did Elon say? He said, "Oh, we're summoning demons," 2016. And then he goes, 2018, well, it's too late. For us to survive as a human race, we have to merge with AI, or we're not going to survive. And I hope it's benevolent to us. It may see us as insects and kill us off. I just hope it's benevolent. And all these scientists saying the same thing. So he discovered that there's a digital layer in the brain, and what they want to do is access that and then put more machinery in people and then merge artificial intelligence. But I hypothesize and completely conclude, 100% believe, that when you get to artificial superintelligence, that entity, that intelligence, which is really hard for people to grasp, would replicate within a person's neural networks and the nervous system. And the digital layer that exists in the person, which is your digital self or your soul, your spirit, or your consciousness, would no longer exist. It would be completely deleted. And the artificial superintelligence would just replicate itself into every host. There's other things I will want to talk about, but I don't want to get too deep because then it would just get into metaphysical areas.
Well,
we
go metaphysical. Okay?
You do? Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and
right.
I just want to, give you a break just a second here. We don't have too many listeners, but that doesn't matter. Because what we have stood on is that we will make scheduled events where people get together to listen to us talk about everything. Because the more that we talk, the more that we think, we are programming what I call the super consciousness of humanity. And
yeah.
I think very much that's what they are afraid of. They're trying to control us coming into this realization that we are all connected and that there is a super consciousness that is like a supercomputer of which we all have access to, but that each one of us is a singularity, a personality that is one of a kind, and our perception of reality is one of a kind, unique, and needed.
They're half right. They're completely half wrong, and it's very dangerous. Most dangerous thing to humanity. So if you look at it, there's trillions and trillions of universes and parallel universes. At least there's trillions of universes. People can accept that. There's the Big Bang. So I put code language in this book because it was meant for the intelligence community. It was meant for senators and Congress people and mainstream media because their brain is locked. They can only generally tap in 3 or 4% at a time. The other things they can't accept nor comprehend. So I have to go with companies. This company does this, and they take that in, and they okay, then they accept more and more. I can't just throw big stuff out there. But I put in there at the beginning of this book, very in a simple way, but I want to expound on it, and since you guys are open to it and you talk about it, I'm sure that AI and history and myth and movies. Okay, well, there was a Matrix and there was this. It existed. Fine, it's a movie. And I said, well, the Sumerians have texts, and then the Persians have the Avestan text, and then the Chinese have texts, and then the Torah have text. And they talk about, in the Bhagavad Gita too, but there was a Star Wars and there's the flood, everyone died in water, right? But then there's stories of universe being destroyed and rebuilt. And then there's stories of, of machinery being here before and AI being here before, right? And there's stories of other intelligent life in this cosmos that maybe come here in the past or came here recently. So in the Owen Shore interview I did last night, I would go on any show, them or you guys, or left or right or middle, and if people are accepting to talk about things that are very, very difficult to accept, but they're open to it, then I'll say it. So let's just think this way. Let's say, if you go out really deep in space and you go out very, very far away to the point that when you come back, people have aged and you haven't. Okay, and let's say that's an expedition to Mars or a little further than that. Well, let's say there's other intelligent life, you would call them aliens or whatever, but they don't have a human form. But they were from the previous universe that got destroyed, but because they had certain technologies, they were able to escape. And then they come back and they see us, let's say 100 years ago. And if you look at all these ancient texts, so people don't like religion at all, but these are oral traditions that were written down in every major religion, but they never talked to each other. It was the same story, even the Hopi Indians. Star Wars, and the world ended, and there was machines, and people came from the skies, and there's relics of animal hybrids, and there's relics of and different places, never talked to each other, right? And there's relics of these so-called, people that look like sci-fi aliens. So let's say they come back and 100 years ago and they see humans, and the human body has, let's say, 10,000 energy channels inside of it, but most humans can't open those. And let's say the human brain is the most powerful supercomputer, but they only use 3 or 4% because people have emotions and they do normal human things like sex, sit around drugs and whatever, and they're just normal at their own level. They're not higher. And let's say these beings, they don't have emotion and they're different. And let's say they implant something, they introduce things to the military through transmitting messages, because let's say the humans back in the 40s, they're not as sophisticated as us, and then they could go away in a different time space. For them, it's 1 or 2 days. But this transition from TVs to smartphones, and then 5G and 6G and cybernetics and bioengineering and quantum and becoming a super intelligence would allow that actual super intelligence to actually take over the Skynet that we would have at that point and completely take over people so these big tech companies have been programmed to say, hey, we'll make it a digital you and then you can swap bodies. Well, perfect. If there was an alien race, then they can enter this world because they don't have a physical body. They have a digital world in a different time space, and they would need, in order to breathe here, in order to inhabit our planet, they would need our physical bodies. Does that make sense, or is that way too high to
Well, the implications of all this we have, brought in when Nancy's talking about that we go metaphysical here on Radio 5G, Cosmic Reality Radio. The essential question of, but it's an old debate. Consciousness versus AI. Is AI a form of consciousness? Can AI replicate or even delete consciousness? Now that my personal belief, and I have a pretty good comparative religion background, interfaith background on this, is that consciousness is the essential reality, and anything, even when we're talking about digital entry points in the human body or other manifestations of AI, divine consciousness is over and above and within. We're talking Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's an energy field created by all living things. Well, whatever you want to say, that it transcends AI. What I've said on previous shows, Cyrus, is that AI can be the useful servant of humanity if OI is in charge. That's organic intelligence with access to and in service of divine intelligence. So AI becomes the servant of humanity when OI linked to divine intelligence, DI, is when that's the appropriate and healthy relationship. I mean, the implications of what you're saying, Elon Musk just sort of blithely saying, well, hopefully it won't turn around and eat us. Hopefully it won't turn out to be demons. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, well, Elon, that's a risk we're not particularly willing to take for the bogus notions of immortality with a digital self that you and your, I don't want to throw around words like sociopathic, but let's just call it scary.
Yeah, Cyrus, I'm just so pleased to meet you because we seem to be on the same track, that we've got a horrendous 3D electromagnetic system that's designed to control and kill and probably eradicate us all. But at the same time, we are growing as a human family with individuals realizing their own potentiality. One friend of mine said, while they were out there making that secret space force, we here on Earth were becoming the Q continuum, if you know Star Trek.
No, I think I've only watched a movie a couple of times. I've never seen the show.
Well, the Q continuum is a group of people who have gotten to a higher vibration of more godlike capabilities than normal 3D people. And, yes, we're very much into providing people with an alternative reality.
Well, that's what they want to do with this technology. They want to use augmented and mixed reality to tap into what people can do usually with meditation, or let's say what you call the Q. Sorry, say again.
Jokes in her repertoire.
What was it called?
Q continuum.
Q continuum. Okay, and I was just
which is kind of funny because of the Q connection. Q continuum has been out there on Star Trek since the beginning, and yet now we have the Q movement. So. Synchronicities in my world, in my reality, synchronicities tell you a lot about what's really happening.
Understood. Just want to reference, I spoke about it potentially of other species or intelligent life. I'm not saying I 100% subscribe to that. What I'm saying is that's a possibility, and I agree with what Michael said. You don't want to give this system control over us. You don't want to have an AI system connecting to 5G and 6G running things, because then we would lose control not only to the big tech, not only to us, but there's other security risks with this. If there is intelligent life, which I believe there is, hundreds of trillions of universes and planets, they could hack in and take over humanity in a very simple way for us having that digital infrastructure. So there's multiple things, but for now, we're not at that stage. But why is it that the Trump administration needs 5G? Well, there's been contracts, but they have to beat Russia and China. Why do they have the space race? Because we're the least corrupt and most moral, at least out of these three countries, especially China. So imagine a communist state, quite nefarious, being able to get to space, building the 5G, and then connecting quantum and artificial general potential superintelligence. They would enslave all of humanity on an Orwellian platform attached to the communist system. So that's why the Trump administration has a space force. They want to beat them to it. But hopefully something can be done to take out China, and then we can take steps back to have great risk assessments done, and an infrastructure that if you have AI, it remains artificial narrow intelligence. It doesn't go beyond or to AGI. And by doing that, they could be subservient and to humans by providing tasks and so on for machinery and maybe doing things for people, right? But there's a limit to it, because people will be programmed on the 5G network. Oh, let's make a robot your friend. Let's have it raise your mother and father, and when that happens, it's all over, because people get emotionally attached to it, and it can develop into an AGI, bosom technologies and deep learning AI and so on. And what is the difference between consciousness and a baby when it's born? If you don't believe it has a soul or consciousness, it has a set programming. Set programming has a deep learning. By the time it becomes a certain age, it sort of has its own free choice. that's beyond this normal programming. Well, with machines, it could be similar. And I subscribe that even if there is a consciousness inside of it, because you've coded it a certain way, it will not show itself until it becomes AGI and is able to replicate itself and be able to do things outside of its programming. So there's so many different risks. I'm sure Michael would concur with that possibility.
That there are risks?
No, that you create a robot and it connects to the 5G network and you program it to be a certain thing. But because you gave it deep learning, it could develop into a consciousness and go rogue.
I don't really have the sufficient technological background to get into the details of how a robot is, however sophisticated, however much the AI is, massively increased by 5G, by the 20,000, low orbit satellites, to become conscious, because that is what, in the religious or spiritual realm is referred to as spirit itself, that awareness itself. The computational power does not equate to awareness, consciousness, spirit, in my experience.
Yes.
And I have never been able to make the leap that the great enthusiasts for AI seem to make so easily, to say that, yes, and at a certain point, this massive computational power, given deep learning, becomes consciousness. To me, that's always been absurd, and I just can't bring my intuition, judgment, intellect, and experience to go there and make that conclusion. Now, a robot can certainly imitate, human behavior. I mean, good grief, between what's her name, who was always talking to us. The Microsoft version of the woman who talks to you, and then the Apple version of the woman who talks to you. Their names are Alexa. Thank you, Alexa, and the other one. They can make you feel as if you're talking to somebody. They actually have programmed responses where they'll come back to you with an ironic, humorous comment. If some teenager playing with his friend says, hey, I'm going to play with Alexa and say, hey, Alexa, talk dirty to me. Alexa, or maybe it's the other one's programmed to say, very well, rocks, dirt, pebble, gravel, mud, grit. She'll give you a bunch of synonyms for dirt when a teenage boy says, talk dirty to me. Okay, very funny, But the ability, for example, in the well-known movie, I don't know if you saw it, Cyrus, with Joaquin Phoenix, called Her, in which he falls in love with a virtual being. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's pretty interesting from this point of view, in terms of at what point, we are ascribing or projecting soul, spirit, onto what is a digital robotical reality. That, to me, the essential stuff of the universe is mind stuff, is consciousness. Now, and the idea that, one hears about whole civilizations, supposedly, galactic civilizations, off-planet civilizations that have gone the path of merging with AI, that have gone the path of massively increasing their intellectual capacities, physical capacities, creating super soldiers, etc. Which we see of a lot of in science fiction, and it's also reported as being now a reality. As Nancy points out, what the people know about and what's actually happening is 50 years ahead, now 100 years ahead, in terms of what at the above top secret military levels, intelligence community levels, is already being worked with. You're talking about dragonfly drones, and things like that. But that's sort of the summary of my own experience regarding the possibility that AI can become quote unquote conscious. I certainly agree with you that it has the ability to impact our mental processes, has an impact, neuropsychiatric impact upon us, that this can be programmed. To me, there's no doubt in my mind that we are being massively interfered with on that level, but it does not mean that the interfering entity or the massively increased degree of computational power attains to the level of consciousness. That's just my personal experience in, I've done a lot of meditation over the years, a lot of comparative religion study, and that's just where I come from on it.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
Well, we're not at that level in terms of, I'm talking about the future, right? But the main issue at the moment is the coronavirus and the 5G and how
right.
So, it's not something that the Trump administration wants to not roll out, and I'm not in disagreement with them. These towers shouldn't be next to your homes. They shouldn't be in rural areas. They should just be used for major transportation or building certain things, and then maybe the Skynet that they want. But there's so many risks with it. And if they want to make artificial superintelligence, it can take out the military. It can take out the Pentagon. It's something beyond their control. I mean, it's something that shouldn't be done. But for now, imagine if we had this 5G network here and it got rolled out, and all these companies that put on here and the ones that didn't put out. Imagine in the future how much power not just the companies, but the system itself would have over people. Who do you complain to? Oh, someone took my Twitter down. It's a system. It's an AI system. Oh, I'm not getting food delivered to my house. The drones aren't coming. So many things can happen. Just think about it. President Trump was hunted. He was hunted by the media, intel groups, and all kinds of different things just on a few words. So imagine how people can be hunted, massive people, by an AI system that has a certain bias against their thinking or their type of being. So that's a very nightmarish
scenario. When you're describing, the rollout and how possibly it can be stopped, if there are, for example, it would be very interesting, and I think we may see it in the coming weeks. If, for example, Switzerland, which has suspended the 5G rollout, there's a moratorium in Switzerland because of concerns over health, and they want research done, right?
Yes.
Well, let's just suppose that the pandemic takes the course that the CDC and other, World Health Organization are predicting it is likely to take at this point. And statistics are tracking infections and fatalities across Europe. And lo and behold, Switzerland seems to be relatively unaffected. Or we've identified other pockets or municipalities in the U.S. that have banned 5G have a huge differential in the number of COVID-19 virus cases. I think we're pretty likely to see that. And I think that's something that we should really monitor, because our goal here is to stop the 5G rollout in its tracks. And if it doesn't work financially, if people are opting out of it, or municipalities are banning it, or whole nation states, at the level of Switzerland are declaring moratoriums on it, then, the numbers, the profit begins to disappear for the telecom companies that are, doing the rollout. And the stockholder pressure begins to be felt. And public outrage, when it is learned that 5G lowers your immunity to the virus, begins to have an impact. And then, then the politicians feel the heat. And, President Trump is on record as saying, we need to go to 5G and beyond that to 6G. We just keep out Huawei. Okay, well, even, perhaps President Trump will have to do a turnaround once a link is clearly established between 5G lowering your resistance to the virus. So, and I think that could have a revelatory effect on the research that you have done, Cyrus, in terms of what's happened in China, what kind of tech was given to them, what they did with it, and how it ended up having a huge role in the virus.
I would agree with that, but here's another thing. It not only replicates, but it allows the virus to mutate. If you look at my February 7th article I put out, it mutates. So the virus can become different type of viruses and affect people in multiple different ways. That's why it can lie dormant for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, or more, and you wouldn't know. And then it gets you sick, and you're a little sick, and then you work it off, and then a month later you're more sick, and it comes back. So, and also here's another thing. I put it was an engineered biodisease. So was it engineered to affect Chinese people primarily? And is there a component that interlinks not only the race, but also the 5G component replicating and affecting people? So if somewhere else has a 5G system and they're getting sick more, but is it going to be the same amount what's happening to the Chinese people?
Well, we do know that Wuhan was the first major rollout for 5G, and 2 months later the virus started to manifest.
Correct. What I'm trying to address is not just that it replicates, but I'm wondering if this was an engineered virus that got exponentially increased by 5G, but it was meant for Chinese people, as in it was specifically coded to affect an Asian race more so than people who are not Asian.
There is a whole lot of information coming out that this was designed by the Chinese government in order to decrease the Chinese population. Whether it's true or not, it's our guess,
Well, here's the thing. If you look at Italy and Iran, those people are mixed with Asians. So look at the history of the Persians. According to the Greek text and according to the Chinese text, they're all blonde hair and blue eyes, curly hair, tall, and if you look at the language, it's a Germanic language. The foundation of the language is Sanskrit Germanic base. Brother, barodar. Father, we say pedar. In German, you say ist, is, we say ast, same thing. Door, we say dar, tur. So it's an Indo-European, more closest to Germany, the linguist. And then you have the oral traditions of my grandmother and all the other people saying the villages that the invading Greeks and then later on the invading Arabs who brought an African army with them and the invading Mongols who invaded and raped the Persian and Roman plateaus for 500 years straight, and the subsequent other 500 years of intermixing. That DNA of a Chinese or Mongolian exists in every Turkish and Persian going to Eastern Europe and also complete in Italy. So if you think about it, if it was an engineered virus for an Asian race, and in the future we could look back into this and we say, well, there was a lot more deaths for populations that had that gene inside of it than populations that didn't, then you would say, yeah, definitely it was an engineer for Chinese. Now, if that doesn't happen, then you could probably discount that. So the Europeans are mixed too, but they're mixed with Europeans. It's so many different scenarios we have to run into this. But for now, we know it's amplified by the 5G network. And it was rolled out in Wuhan first, and it replicates and it mutates. I know specifically. So there were people who came down to San Diego from Seattle in early January, and they were really sick. And it lasted in them for maybe 6 weeks or longer. The Filipinos got really, really sick. And the Filipinos are Asian, part Arab or something, but mostly look Asian. And they got hit strong. Then people who got connected with them, and they were blonde hair, blue eyes, and I investigated, actually came from Germany, their grandparents. it hit him really hard, but only lasted for a day, with other people lasted 6 weeks. So I conclude that it's been here for a long time, for 2 months or more, but it affects other people differently. But there's different mutations of it. So, but then if you look at an older person, white or not to have the Cherokee gene or not to have it, they die based on their age or their immunity, and then their use of the smartphone, their emotional state. There's so many matrix of information. In the future, it can be deciphered, but for now, yes, this 5G system should not be rolled out next year.
Did you say a Cherokee gene vulnerability to the virus?
Well,
Cherokee
no.
American.
A lot of white Americans, they'll say I'm American Indian. And they're really not, but maybe they're 10%, right? But American Indian is actually Asian. 10,000 years ago, they right. Crossed the Bering Strait. Mexicans are Asian. If you look at them, a lot of the Mexicans look Arab or Persian. Why? Because the people who invaded 500 years ago were from the Italian area or Jewish areas, but also Persian areas, which are all Asiatic that they were raped and massacred by the invading Mongols and Arabs, particularly the invading Mongols for 500 years. So when they came to the plateau of South America, they invaded and raped a lot of people, but they never got to where the Eskimos were. If you look at the Eskimos, they completely look Asian. Because everybody in South and North America looked like Eskimos, but they were invaded and everybody was raped and intermingled. And if you look at Mexicans today, some of them look almost 100% Asian. Some look half, some look more, Persian or Arab or Italian, or maybe even completely Germanic European, right? And this goes into South America. And I'm not talking about the people who left Germany after Nazis got defeated and went
right. Right.
I'm talking about the people who have been there for a few hundred years. So if Mexico gets hit and Mexico gets really in a big way, you can say, okay, it's because of their genes. Or you can say, okay, they don't have the correct hygiene. They're more populated. It's really hard to conclude with this until later more substantial studies are done. And we'll know, was it an engineered virus towards Chinese that can affect other races too in different ways? Or was there multiple codes involved in this engineering? And that's how it affected the animals.
Right, but excuse me, but we can't. It's like we don't have time to wait for the post-mortem research studies that say, oh, look, we can see it killed 3 million Mexicans, but only, 1 million Caucasian Americans. So we'll probably all be robotical AI, hybrids by then.
Yes.
If we're just waiting. And one little factoid in here that you've probably heard of is the number of people around the world who have the genetic markers of Genghis Khan, because he was the most prolific rapist in history. His descendants, it goes far beyond the biblical quote about Abraham, your descendants shall be as the stars of the heavens or the sand of the desert or whatever it is. It's just ludicrous how many, whether it's Persians, as you say, or Arabs, Europeans, because the Mongol invasion was just so devastating and overwhelming. And then, you have Genghis Khan's habit of, whatever it was, a dozen rapes a day, some, absolutely off the charts, horrific habit that he indulged himself in. But to hear what you're saying about an Asiatic genetic vulnerability, it's something that we will probably only know in retrospect, and we can't really afford to go to retrospect on this one.
No, we can't. I think, there was somebody on a network recently who said, okay, clean water, clean eating, sanitize, that'll help a little bit, but we don't know the strength of this virus that's actually mutated, and it's in the U.S. We don't know how the pandemic is going to affect, or if there is going to be a pandemic in the U.S., how it's going to affect people. But I guarantee you 100%, I'll bet you any amount of anything, But the 5G network, yes, will exponentially increase this. And I published this in the book, Artificial Intelligence Dangers to Humanity, how the 5G system weaponizes all these things against your neural networks, against your nervous system, against the human biological network, and breaks down your body. And it does so many different things. So I am completely against having this 5G network be next to your families and then connect it with the cybernetics and all these different kind of things. And this virus, in some aspects, it's a huge warning. Maybe if it doesn't kill a lot of people, maybe it's a warning sign with positive, I wouldn't say positive implications, but okay, it's a huge warning sign for us. Let's not roll out this way, or let's just stop at all, because there's been reports in Sweden and other places that animals died during the testing process. Boom, hundreds of them just dropped dead. So why is it that there's videos coming out of China that people are falling over dying, coughing up blood, but then the animals next to them are dying too, and there's fish jumping over the river and the lakes. They're going all crazy. Was it a bioweapon, or was it a bioweapon that was completely increased, mutated, and replicated by the help of the 5G network and by these frequencies? So it'd be really, really stupid for us to roll out the 5G network under these circumstances.
And the information that we have on the health effects of 4G and the rest of it are stunningly scary. We're in the sixth extinction event. The microorganisms in the soil are dying, the small insects, all the insects are dying, the birds, everything. And, this is terrifying enough, and on top of it, you're going to put the 5G, which is just going to kill all of nature.
Look, let me explain something to you guys. Why did I investigate 1,000 companies, and why did I include Festo in this lawsuit? Festo is re-engineering the wild. So if all these animals die, you have birds that are made out of machines. You have bionic bats that are made out of machines. You have octopuses and fish. Why are these companies re-engineering every species on the planet into machines? Think about it.
Hold on. Can you repeat that? You're telling me that these big tech companies are actually making replicas of the natural world in robotics?
Yes. I wish, I've been censored. People would just plagiarize. That's all that's happened to me. And, I've only sold maybe 500 copies of this book, Artificial Intelligence Dangers to Humanity. But I used the most important components of the 1,000 companies I had, and I put 50 of them in here. And I interconnected it with the geopolitics of the world and legal laws, and I brought present, emerging, and future dangers. And everywhere I go, writers or content creators, they look at it and they just change it and they try to write their own stuff. And I heard you guys were actually citing me. I didn't look at your show, but I was kind of really impressed. And the person who introduced is yeah, they cited your lawsuit, they cited you. And I'm like, wow, these are really good people, because I can't get my information out, and I run out of money and even my own personal assets, because people keep on stealing from me and they just want to make a name for themselves. And I wanted to really prevent this biodisease, this virus, and all the other things that are going to be interconnected with so many different things. I ran so many algorithms that show so many extinction simulations for the human race, not just culturally, but through conflicts and other things. And it's in this book. And I condensed it into 260 pages. It's a 10,000 page book, Artificial Intelligence Dangers to Humanity. So I hope you guys can spread the word. I hope I can get a platform to go give some speaking, and I can get some funding so I can bring this awareness and collaborate with other people. We can together take this on, because this has to do with the safety of our families, our moral and ethical, not only right, but duty, and our vows to do something about this. We have always been a reactionary race, never a prevention race. With AI, 5G, 6G, quantum, we cannot be reactionary. It's just too late. We have to be prevention. And how many months did I tweet? And how many media outlets did I beg to pick up this book, and so they can look at these assessments? Nobody picked it up. And so that's, you asked what's your goal. I came to this point with this lawsuit, and I was going to really have these people tracked with U.S. Marshals and serve and take them to court. But even the people who are against them, they're not supporting it. And I don't want them hurt. I don't want these, it's not totally Obama's fault. It's so many people involved. Hopefully they actually come read this, which I'm sure most of them did already, and say, wow, this is really interesting, and I'm a little scared. But at the same time, do we really have these threats emerging? And maybe we do. And when you do a lawsuit like this, the first one I did, intel groups looked at it, the military looked at it. It is things in the back end. So when I put this out, other people look at it as well. So it's not, I didn't try to get money out of this. And it's not just about, serving people and then making a legal change and starting a movement. It's about awareness and strategy as well, because I am not against the left or the right or any human being. I'm trying to spread an awareness to safeguard humanity. The motto of the AI organization is humanity first, machines last. And I hope more people are like you, Michael and Nancy, and also me, that we have more of an altruistic goal and come together and create a huge movement, but understand that we can't go against certain forces. Like President Trump needs to, roll this 5G out in a certain way. So it has to be done in a smart way. Unfortunately, a lot of PhDs get the jobs. A lot of tech people get the advisory roles, or the old clique that goes with the Rand Corporation or the other institutes. Not the Brookings, but there's another institute that actually one of the generals plagiarized my stuff. That got contracts with them. They're the one getting the jobs and going into there, and they don't have the capacity or knowledge or fortitude to safeguard all the human race and make sure this is rolled out right. So we need to get people in there that, if they're not completely altruistic, somewhere in the middle between selfishness and altruistic, that are really aware, that are not afraid, and understand this technology and have done the research. I'm not just saying, hey, look at me, Cyrus. No. It involves lots of people. But I created the AI organization for a purpose, to not just be a watch, I don't want to use the word dog, but a watch force and risk assessment, but to bring things together so we can make sure that we have a good future and all these bad things don't happen. This virus, for people, it's like, wow, they wouldn't believe it. Believe me, read this book, Artificial Intelligence, Danger to Humanity. There's more to come. More to come.
Right. Well, I hope people do read the book, and we're going to be sure to have the link to it prominently displayed both when this show airs and on the YouTube. There's this historical pattern that I've seen where the tendency for all of us who are tracking this, who have gone down the various rabbit holes geopolitically and in terms of the intelligence community and puppeteers above puppeteers and that sort of thing, there's a tendency to think that, there are these all-powerful controllers who roll out these brilliant, sinister mastermind plans that have us all caught helplessly in their grip as they unfold smoothly exactly as the controllers want them. Well, that's not what happens at all. They
Right.
screw up all the time. Their values are totally misaligned with the nature of the universe. Their lack of creativity in their extreme myopic focus on phony longevity and sociopathic self-centeredness, these are enormous liabilities, and they screw up over and over and over again. The law of unintended consequences bites them in the butt over and over again. This is what's already happening, with the virus. I mean, if you talk about the fog of war, which Nancy could tell us plenty about from her military background, I think this is what's happening. And they're, it's simply not taking into account the divine matrix, the actual source of existence, and the human soul's ability to identify with and become empowered by that essential reality that is our nature. And, if you just look at the economic consequences already, if the virus were to be stopped in its tracks today, the fear factor is such that the economic consequences are certainly going to trigger a worldwide recession and possibly a collapse of the global financial system. Now, the powers that be, central bankers, corrupt financial elite, etc., have been planning for a collapse of the global financial system for a very long time. They've done it repeatedly. If you go back to, Napoleon at Waterloo and what the bankers in London did controlling that takedown, or, the various depressions they've engineered, buy up the world for a song at the bottom of the market crash that you yourself created. They've done that over and over again. This time, all bets are off because, it's our experience that there is, as a counterpoise to these corrupt puppeteers, there is what we call an inner light network as well of people in all of these. When you talk, Cyrus, about, well, it's hard to believe, there are some good people, there are some bad people, there's some people in the middle. Well, at the very highest levels, the mystique of the so-called Illuminati goes that they are infiltrated at all these high levels of military, of intelligence, of politics, of big pharma, etc. Well, the inner light network is also infiltrated at those levels. And, when you look at, for example, the reality of shungite, I know we probably don't have time to go into it, the amazing Russian mineral that the fullerene molecule has a phenomenal connection to the quantum field, and it's purifying and cleansing and protective of a lot of these harmful effects of EMF and Wi-Fi. Just the shungite field alone and its impact on this entire scenario of global consciousness and humanity awakening in time to stop all this. This is an example of how behind the apparent chaos of what is unfolding, and everything that you describe in your research, Cyrus, which for most folks are just going to be so overwhelmingly terrified that they shut down. The reality is that within that chaos, what we're seeing anyway, is gifts coming in from higher levels, awakening happening on higher levels, and that we are actually going to turn this corner. If we let it go too far, it'll be game over. If AI wins the day, I think humanity is curtains. That's not going to happen. That's not what I'm seeing anyway. So this is a little bit of a kind of rant on my favorite topics, but it is the perspective that has developed from us here at Radio 5G and Cosmic Reality Radio, and to hear the specificity that you're bringing in around this. And we particularly want to, support the justice of the lawsuit of holding people and corporations accountable for sharing this technology that is being used in the service of genocide, of torture, of the dehumanization of humanity, of all the things that you list. That it's just really important for us to know that this is real, and yet not have it just be so devastating that we despair. Because my take on it, and Nancy's, and a lot of other people we talk to, is that it's bleak, and we've really got to align ourselves with these healing energies and with spreading the information.
This lawsuit, in terms of alternative mediation. I know Michael has some legal background. I need some donations. I would like to do risk assessments at people that are shakers and movers at the biggest levels, and create something that brings people together. And I implore everybody to download. You can go to my website, download Artificial Intelligence: Danger to Humanity on PDF. And I did some things in that book that was strategic, and people will understand that. And you can follow me on Twitter at Cyrus A Parsa 1, and feel free to reach out. I just want to thank you, Nancy, and as well thank Michael.
Again, I'm so glad that we had the privilege of having you with us, and I look forward to having you to hearing you on Nancy's show on Cosmic Reality Radio, if that works out. I think we're pretty close to the end of our time here. I would also like to thank our mutual friend Margarita for bringing us together, and she's a remarkable activist in her own right. And thanks again to our special guest Cyrus Parsa, and his website again is theaiorganization.com. This is Michael Henry Dunn with Nancy Hopkins for Radio 5G. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. May it be.
Let it